If you've ever tried to slow down or meditate and found it overwhelming, you're not alone. Many of us are overstimulated, overtired, and running on complete empty. So when we finally do pause, everything we've been holding in starts to rise up to the surface. Or maybe it just feels like you're falling apart. In this session, we're going to practice using art as a gentle anchor, a way to focus, notice, reconnect with your inner calm, and get curious. So one small detail at a time. So we're going to slow down. The section in the middle of the video where I draw in silence, you can use again and again as your own space for art meditation. Come back to it anytime you need to slow down and to settle your nervous system. Welcome to Chiron Art Therapy. I'm Maggi Colwell, an art therapist and Jungian. Here we explore archetypal images, personal symbolism in art and dreams, and what your psyche is trying to tell you. If you're ready to dive into your inner world, you're in the right place. Subscribe, and let's begin. Today I want to talk about sensing and dialing into focused, calm consciousness. And I think it's something that's hard to get to if you're used to being overstimulated all the time. So if this isn't something that you can just roll into as we're practicing, that's okay. A lot of us are overstimulated, overcaffeinated, undersleeping, stressed, and used to tons of stimulation and distraction. The other side of that is if you've had a history of trauma, for a lot of people, it is very hard to bring that level of stimulation down to a place that feels comfortable. So I want to say that if this is hard and it doesn't feel relaxing, I completely understand that. A lot of the people that work with me individually, they do so because they've started from a place where they want to have a creative practice, or they want to be able to have a meditation practice, or be able to do some inward kind of work. But they find that trying to get focused or still or focus on anything going on inside just feels like overwhelming and emotional and too much. And a lot of what I do in therapy is creating a place of containment so that we can dial it back, slow it down, and be able to create a space where we can take it little bits at a time and know how much stimulation is enough stimulation for you specifically. So if this is hard, I've recognized this, and a Zoom setting with a bunch of people, if you're trying to recovery in any sort of sense can be difficult. If it's hard, that's not just you, that's a lot of people, and this may just not be the perfect setting to get all the way down to where you need to be to do these kind of practices. So I don't want to dismiss anybody from that. The other resource that I want everybody to have, which I'm going to put in the chat and then I'll have in my video notes section, is a blog that I wrote a few weeks ago. You don't need to read this right now, but it has a big chunk in it that has a list of different types of practices, videos, resources, meditations that I use as like a toolbox with a lot of my clients for nervous system regulation. Going right into meditation, focusing a exercise is difficult for you here. These might be some of the exercises that'll help you wind down and get to a place where you're grounded and you can do these kind of exercises. So that can be something that you can try again on your own. 2 weeks ago, I went to a lecture, and my big takeaway was the concept of notitia. And so Latin idea of taking note. And this is literally a different way to look at mindfulness, of noticing the little things in your life that matter, of really being present with it. Notitia. Notitia. It gives it more of an emphasis that makes it special because you're setting it aside and making it special. I think it can be a way to grow and appreciate gratitude journaling, or just noticing what's important. I find that when I have moments in my life that are synchronistic. Something strikes a chord in me, or I feel like something has related to a dream that I had that morning. I was like, oh, there's the connection. Something like that just like strikes me, hits a chord, that if I write it down and spends just some time making note of it, then it becomes more important to me and it's something that's special. So, what I want us to do here is we're just going to doodle, but I want you to think about starting off small. Whether it, a couple ways to start about this would be like maybe there's a little doodle you do all the time. I have a little spiral that I do concentric circles a lot, or like a little star. Some people draw hearts or whatever your little blob thing is. Start off with something really small and just see if you can relate your other patterns and other colors to this small thing. I've done this before where I've put stickers on pages where you just put a little sticker and then figure out, okay, how do I make a drawing from this sticker that has been started on my page? Or it could be a drip of coffee. Literally doesn't matter, but think about focusing on the little details and making note of them and getting curious. I'm going to flip down my notepad while we play with this a little bit. This is more about focus than what you're trying to make, is about noticing little things as you add to what you're drawing. Let's see. There we go. I'm going to just, let's see. So yours doesn't have to look anything like mine. It's just the idea that we want to start with something small and pay attention to the little details and pay attention to your own focus as we work. And this is that opportunity that if you wanted to play meditation music, you're welcome to. I'm going to mute myself for a little while so that you can pay attention to your internal process rather than me talking, if that makes sense. suggest to everybody that we find a place where we can pause for a little while. You're welcome to not follow directions. If you're really into it, please keep going. I'm going to talk for a while. I stopped mine when it started to get big enough that I found myself making bigger movements. And then I was wanting to sketch faster with what I was doing. So rather than making something that felt busy, I wanted it to still feel like it was subtle and had plenty of space. That as I started to make these softer lines around the edge, I said, no, that's as big as I want to make it so that I can keep focused on these little subtle details. A couple questions I've gotten were, is this like neurographica? It can be based on your focus. Use it through intention and focus to be able to release tension and change your mindset on things. I think definitely falls into some of the same kind of category of meditative art. The other thing that I mentioned here is Zentangle, and that is a concept of meditative art that's done on these little squares, and you do a repeated pattern over and over again, and there's a bunch of different patterns that you can learn. That's a type of meditative doodling. So if you like this sort of thing, both of those might be something that you want to look into. Another thought I had was, I usually don't ever encourage people to use pens or pencils. Most of the people I work with are recovering perfectionists. And when you give somebody something that's erasable and can get very highly detailed, sometimes that increases the desire to make things perfect and very precise. But the idea of focusing on little subtleties was something that I wanted to hone in on today. So if this felt uptight, then this is not your medium. So just wanted to add that in there. If you're able to with your technology, and I appreciate it if you're not, to go back to that feeling wheel and sensation list, notice if you had any sensations stir up as you were working on your art, or if you have any sensations that you recognize within you now that you're looking at what you made. Paying attention to what our physical sensations are is a way to listen to our intuition, to the unconscious, and get in touch with even being able to sense what emotions feel like. But sensing and emotions are different, but our culture does not encourage us to sense unless we're doing exercise like sports. So I just wanted to give this as an opportunity to say, what does this make me feel? What do I notice? I, for one, know that the word tender feels good. That as I felt like I was settling into what I was doing, it was relaxing, but there was also tenderness to it. I have two rules with my adults in group art therapy, and it's one, there's no right or wrong way. You don't have to follow directions. So if you have an idea, go for it and see what happens. It's not, if you start something and you don't like it, you can't flip the page and start over. So there's always an option there. And then my other rule is, when you talk about yourself or your art ability or your artwork, try to be nice. It's so much easier to be nice to everyone else, and it's hard to be nice to ourselves. Those are my aspirational rules. I feel like getting our ability to go to a curious place, I think that's like the answer to like how we treat ourselves and like relating to other people. Is if I can be curious about where somebody's coming from, there's hope in any relationship. Yeah, just noticing. And it feels like a lot to be asking for, but it can make a huge difference. If we're talking about dual hand exercises, another one I like doing is if I'm looking at a piece after I've worked on it for a while, I'll think about using my dominant hand with my sense of my consciousness, my ego, as I write out that in one color, and then respond as an inner part with my non-dominant hand. So that'll have more connectivity across hemispheres of your brain because you're using both of your hands. But it has a loosening effect that's a kind of like surrender and curiosity, and that can really get your intuitive juices flowing to get the inner response from you from your other hand. Jung didn't do
Or
this with both of his hands, but in the Red Book, a lot of the dialogue in the Red Book is written like a script where it's I or Jung, and then whatever Jung was saying, and then the inner figure, the image that he was dialoguing with was the other figure. And I feel like you can do this with yourself using both of your hands as a way to tap into that deeper part. I'm not using part from a internal family systems concept. I feel like that's too highly defined because if we're thinking about our feelings, the primordial images that live within us, the archetypal patterns that live within us, they aren't codified. We don't know what their relationships are because there's an inner ecosystem within us that's going to live out its life and do its thing and work within us in a very unique sort of way. And I don't want you to put labels on something that cuts it off from like the vital energy that's actually trying to create change within yourself as a living ecosystem. It's also exhausting to put all of the armor down when we're used to carrying so much. When we keep moving, it's much easier. When we get really quiet and focused, sometimes all of that stuff starts to fall off in a way that you realize just how tired and holding it all together